The night the joke was made, the desert seemed to hold its breath. Jonah Hale remembered the laughter first, rough, careless laughter bouncing off the wooden walls of the trading post. Men who had drunk too much whiskey and thought too little of consequences. He had stood apart, hat low, boots dusty from a long drive, wanting nothing more than to finish his business and ride back to his quiet ranch. Then someone shoved a figure toward him, and the laughter grew louder. "Take her," one man had said, slapping Jonah's shoulder. "A gift. Or a joke. Depends how you see it." That was how she came into his life. She stood straight despite the ropes on her wrists, chin lifted, eyes dark and steady. Not pleading, not afraid, just watching him, as if weighing something far heavier than the moment itself. She was Apache, young but not fragile, her long black hair falling loose down her back. Jonah felt the room close in around him, the smoke, the stink of liquor, the cruelty disguised as humor. "No," Jonah had said, his voice cutting sharper than he expected. "I won't take part in this." The laughter faltered, then turned sour. "She's yours now," another voice sneered. "Unless you're scared of a woman." Jonah knew the kind of men he was dealing with. Refusing outright could make things worse for her once he left. The thought tightened his chest. He looked at the woman again. She met his gaze without blinking. "I'll take responsibility," he said finally. "But she's not a thing. Untie her." There had been more muttering, more insults, but in the end the ropes were cut. Jonah didn't look back as he led his horse out into the night, the woman walking beside him. The desert wind was cool, carrying the scent of sage and dust. For a long time, neither of them spoke. When they reached his ranch hours later, the moon hung low and pale over the land. Jonah lit a lantern and set it on the porch. Only then did he turn to her. "My name's Jonah," he said quietly. "You're safe here. I don't know what you've been told, but I won't force you to do anything." She studied him in the lantern light, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice calm but edged with something hard-earned. "My name is Nia," she said. "I was given to you to shame me. And you were supposed to laugh." Jonah swallowed. "I don't think that kind of joke is funny." A flicker passed through her eyes, surprise, maybe, or disbelief. She glanced around the empty ranch, the wide land stretching into darkness. "We're alone," she said after a moment. "Let's do what's necessary." The words hit him like a slap. Jonah took a step back. "No," he said firmly. "Whatever you think is expected, it's not happening." Nia's jaw tightened. "You don't understand. Men like those don't let things go. If I return unchanged, they will say you rejected me. That makes me worthless to them. Dangerous." Jonah felt the weight of her truth settle over him. He had lived among violence long enough to recognize it when it hid behind custom and mockery. "You can stay," he said. "As long as you want. Work if you wish, rest if you need. But no one owns you here." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft snort of horses in the corral. Finally, Nia nodded once. "Then I will stay," she said. "For now." The days that followed were cautious ones. Nia moved through the ranch like a shadow at first, alert to every sound, every shift of Jonah's mood. Jonah, for his part, gave her space, speaking only when necessary, explaining the work, the land, the simple routines that had shaped his solitary life. She proved capable beyond expectation. She learned the rhythms of the ranch quickly, her hands sure as she helped mend fences, tend animals, cook meals that slowly grew less silent. At night, she sometimes sat on the porch and stared out at the stars, her face lit by memory and longing. Jonah noticed the scars then, not just the faint ones on her wrists, but the deeper ones carried in the way she flinched at raised voices, the way she slept lightly, ready to wake at danger. He never asked about them, but he adjusted himself around them, lowering his voice, announcing his presence, offering kindness without demanding trust. Trust, he learned, was something earned inch by inch. One evening, a storm rolled in from the west, thunder cracking the sky open. The horses grew restless, and Jonah worked late securing the barn. When he returned to the house, soaked and tired, he found Nia sitting by the fire, her face pale. "They will come," she said suddenly. "Who?" Jonah asked, setting his hat aside. "The men who laughed," she replied. "Jokes like that are not forgotten." As if summoned by her words, hoofbeats echoed in the distance. Jonah's muscles tensed. He went to the window and saw lanterns bobbing in the dark. "Go upstairs," he told her. "Lock the door." Nia stood instead. No, I will not hide. The men arrived loud and confident, their laughter carried on the rain. They demanded to see her, demanded proof of ownership, of humiliation fulfilled. Jonah stepped onto the porch, rain dripping from his coat, his stance solid. She's not for sale, he said. And she's not a joke. The leader sneered. You think you're better than us, rancher. I think you're done here, Jonah replied. The confrontation was brief but violent. Words turned to fists, fists to blood. Jonah fought with the desperation of a man protecting more than land. Nia watched from the doorway, fear and fury warring in her chest. When one of the men raised a knife, she moved without thinking, striking him with a piece of firewood. The knife clattered to the ground. The men retreated at last, curses trailing behind them into the storm. When it was over, Jonah leaned against the porch rail, breathing hard. Nia stood before him, hands shaking. You didn't have to do that, she said. Yes, Jonah replied softly. I did. Something shifted between them then, a barrier cracking. That night, they sat by the fire, tending wounds, sharing silence that no longer felt empty. In the weeks that followed, word spread that Jonah Hale was not a man to be trifled with. More importantly, word spread that Nia walked freely on his land, not as property but as partner. She began to speak of her past then, of her people, of loss, of the strength she had learned to carry even when stripped of everything else. Jonah listened. In her stories, he found a mirror to his own loneliness, his own quiet griefs buried under work and routine. Slowly, respect grew into affection, affection into something deeper, chosen rather than forced. One evening, under a sky blazing with sunset, Nia turned to him. When I said we were alone, she said, I believed survival meant surrender. You showed me another way. Jonah met her gaze. You showed me what courage really looks like. Their bond was not born of necessity, but of choice. Together, they rebuilt not just a ranch, but a sense of belonging neither had thought possible. Nia began teaching Jonah her language, her songs. Jonah shared the land, the future he had once imagined alone. The joke that had brought her there lost its power, replaced by a story of resilience and dignity. And in the quiet of the desert nights, beneath endless stars, two souls who had been underestimated found strength, not in doing what was expected, but in doing what was right.